Hello, beautifuls. Popping in from working outside to give you some transit information for this lunar eclipse that is coming up later this evening. Hello and welcome. My name is Raine Ford. If you're new to my channel, this is Mountain Woman Medicine, and I'm coming to you from Nematon the Mountain. And today is March 13th, 2025, and we are heading towards a lunar eclipse on the 23rd degree of the Virgo astrological sign. So just want to kind of set the stage here for a second because we are in the middle of a very interesting time. If you are of a spiritual minded ilk, or if you are curious in the world beyond matter, and the world before we get to understand fully what's in front of us, the world of wonder, the world of mystery, the world of intrigue. Here's some intriguing pieces I'd like to lay on the buffet table in front of you for you to peruse through with your sensorial system. Don't take my word for it. Try it out for yourself. So I propose to look at the perspective that we are sitting underneath of an astrological influence of a number of archetypes that are all sitting on one side of, we'll call it the energy container that we live inside of. One end is the moon, and the other end is all of this like entourage. We've got the sun, which is like the brilliance and our shine and how we share and bring our gifts. It can also be our arrogance and our entitlement. And there's the north node, our sense of direction and attunement, and what is our inner direction pointed at? What is our trajectory carrying us towards? And then, well, of course, what do we look like as we're doing that? What we look like, what we come off as, what is our projection field? I think that's an avenue by which we get to explore what is behind what we do. Because although it sounds very simple, it's not often a thing that is true that people go exploring that. Why do we do what we do? Why do we think what we think? We are in this time of Pisces. Okay, so all this entourage of the sun, the north node, our direction. We have Saturn, our limitations, our teacher, or the like stern older grandfather of "Have you learned your lesson yet?" sort of way of being. They're parading across the sky in opposition to the moon who's sitting over in Virgo, right? Precision and details and wanting to care in very simple ways and very specific kinds of ways. And it's being shown over and over again over this course of this week that we're in, starting today, actually starting like 3 days ago, or even a week ago, right? And even leading up into an eclipse, there's a time portal that we are in where we're feeling that energy potentially. So if you are a person who has places and points inside of mutable signs, inside of Pisces, Virgo, inside of, look where your Saturn placements are, look where your Venus placements are. Invitation to go look at your chart. I will include at the bottom of this link, someone please remind me if I do not post it. I want to post the Inner Cartography Getting Started guide. And so in that is a number of different links to be able to go pull your own human design chart, your gene key chart, your astrology chart, because that's what I work with here in this channel, is a synergy between human design, gene keys, and astrology. And you'll also hear me throwing in emotional bridges because there's a deep correlation to that and the elements that are found inside of astrology. Understanding where our birth placements are inside of our own chart, while understanding what the cosmos of the live arrangement that we are all living under together, what those two have as an impact together is a whole depth of layer that is very personal. What I'm sharing with you today is things around the transit energy itself and places where perhaps you might be able to feel it filtering into your world. I'm going to share with you my screen and show you a little bit about the visual aspect of what I mean before we dive into the gene key exploration of how and where these things come into being together. And I'm going to situate things there. Share. Wonderful. Okay. Shift this way. Okay, so here we are looking at the astrology chart of just a little while ago, right? I think I pulled this a little bit earlier this morning, a little before 9 o'clock. So things have moved a little bit, and we're coming closer and closer into an alignment with where we are later this evening. See, the setup is starting to begin. Right here's where we're looking at the sun, and straight across we're looking at the moon. So we're going to be looking at a lunar eclipse where there's a blockage, an occlusion of that pathway of light. You're going to see it in its totality here in the Northeast between like midnight and 2 a.m. here in New York is when we will have be experiencing our totality. And so what we've got going on here, we've got Saturn, Sun, North Node, Neptune. We've got Venus, who just started going retrograde a couple days ago. Mercury, who will begin to go retrograde tomorrow. So these two will begin to proceed at least by degree signs, not in actuality of planet. Remember, this is a way we are perceiving. So it is a way of almost like understanding our own perceptions being mirrored back at us, right? So, and we've also got Chiron. And so we've got Chiron, and so we've got between Aries and Pisces, all of this energy is bouncing back and having an influence with the moon. So varying different levels are going to be in opposition. So it's a little bit like, imagine a big pool of water sitting at the feet of Virgo, the Virgin. Just a little piece to look at while I'm talking about Venus. You take a peek down here. You can look at Venus right here. Modest, shy, meticulous, reliable, practical, diligent, intelligent, and analytical. Fussy and a worrier, perfectionism, conservative. Right, so there's all these different dynamics that are bringing together where the rest of those energies are kind of bringing and dropping a pool, dropping a pebble into the pool at the feet of Virgo and inviting that reflection into self, because it's all coming through from Pisces to Virgo. It's reflecting these images into this pool of water or through a pool of water, inviting an analysis of one's own psyche, of one's inner journey, of one's spiritual path. Some would say that this is a coming to priesthood time, a priestendom time, a coming home to self. You can put whatever fancy words or not fancy words you want to it, to bring a responsibility to it. Bringing it home into the depth of the love, the light, and the dark, the full spectrum of all the things, is really what's trying to be birthed through that virgin energy that is Virgo. We are being asked to return to that state of innocence and at the same time receive these messages from Pisces. Let's go take a look and see what some of these messages are. I'm going to pop over into the transit chart that I pulled using my inner cartography matrix. And so here we're looking at the sun. So the sun and the sun and the moon are what are playing a role in these pieces and parts, right? And the earth, actually. So we're going to be speaking about both here. Notice we've got 36, 6, 6, and it keeps going, 36 and another 6. So let's talk about this gate 36 and this gate 6 and what they represent. 36 lives over in the solar plexus, and so does 6. They both are emotional based energy. Right? We've got a deeply emotionally attuned activation that is happening and reverberating through our systems. The energy of the 36 is around crisis and compassion. It's growing our compassion through the process of walking us through the dark night of the soul, our dark night of our soul, and us watching our beloveds walk through same. and similar and different. It's also around what it takes for us to come to a deep acceptance and deep compassion of humanity, of what we are all going through, growing through, and what we're getting out of it. It's gearing us, it's shaping us to be able to hold more compassion. Not saying this is fun, speaking as I see it. 36 is also around the emotional impulse of desires and the longing for new experiences, the willingness to be affected by crisis as they are perceived as an opportunity for development. So this is a mechanical way of looking at this energy of the 36 as a way of being able to learn ourselves. So when we put ourselves at the feet of learning in our darkest times, we can find such amazing gold in that alchemical process. That's what this is asking. This is some of the last degrees of Pisces. See, we have Pisces, gate 36 spans from the 22nd degree to the 28th degree of Pisces. So this is the oldest sign in the zodiac. This is full of water. This is that mutable energy of how are we going to learn to fold our rigid ways, our certainties, and allow them to roll and move with the sands of time, the sands and the winds. And how too can we be still a needle threading through the tapestry of life while allowing life to play itself through us. It allows and invites and necessitates a shedding of illusions, a releasing of insisting upon things to be a way that they are not. Kind of acceptance, an action of acceptance, meaning we can say, yes, I accept a thing to be true, but then we may, in our nervous systems, continue to respond to the contrary. And so at that point, we might want to go, oh, okay, it's time now to teach my nervous system to believe the things that I'm saying. And so then it enters us into a new way of practicing or a new way of being. Right? So where we get the opportunity to train the mind and to be with what is being created by that consciousness. And so that energy that is streaming down through the neutrino stream during this time of the ecliptic energy is impacting and reverberating through with this gate 6. Okay, still in the solar plexus. Now this is Virgo energy. This is the energy of friction and diplomacy. Oh, this is one end of the channel of mating, the channel of unifying and uniting. It is a penetrative energy. It is friction based. It is around what's involved to consider it, to be considerate of, and to bring into discussion those things that are necessary to talk about in order to create fruitful development and have growth. Right? It's like if we do not lay our cards on the table, we cannot have the full conversation. And so it's really about laying it out there. It's also a little bit about being blunt. It's a little bit about being all right, that people like either find you put offable. It may be the same energy by which, you know, someone finds you desirable. Right? So it's a very, it's how we find what is going to work for us. That's why I often say I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And yet I love nothing more than to watch people come to life in their power, in their offerings into the world, into their strength, into their deep appreciation of all of their parts, of all of their aspects, of what brought them here, got them here, who they've met, and where they might be going, and even who they've left behind. Because I think all of those things are an amazing cauldron, container, and fodder for what it is that we get to evolve through. It's quite fun, even when it's also hard. So let's take a look at the aspects of Well, one piece I want to point out is this gate 36 has a collective energy to it. So collective energy can come off as like a little cold, a little distant, a little like, yep, well, this is just the way it is, you know? And it can feel a little harsh, where the six energy, this gate six energy is tribal. And this is around defense, deals, and supports, right? So this is much more like, hey, yeah, come on in. We got a bowl of hot soup for you. We got some wood out back that you can chop for us. And right. And so it's a one hand washing the other. It's camaraderie, it's connection. Right. And so there can be a bit of a dissonance between how we feel the energy coming at us and what it is that we're prepared to receive. And it can be helpful to know that that energy is a little on the, it's a little off from each other. These placements are not necessarily what one might call comfortable. Okay, so in the spectral aspects of things, we are looking at, zoop over to here, the storm and the peacemaker. And I'm going to pull this into the moon as well. So we've got the sun and the north node that are both in gate 36 that are up in the Pisces side of things. And in the Virgo side of that map that I was showing you earlier, we have gate 6 for the earth, which is sort of the center point of how we're looking at things, right? And then, at least from this particular map of how we're looking at things, there's many different ways to see things. And we're also looking at it from the moon, so our emotions, our drive, and we're also looking at it from the south node side of things, because it's the south node eclipse. And so the south node side of things is the past. It's what we're letting go of. So today is really about a day of letting go. Like when I get down here, I'm going to go outside and probably trim some raspberries and some elderberries. I'm not going to uncover things because it's not quite spring warm enough yet for things to be uncovered. But I'm going to be clearing and cleaning the garden, removing debris, removing things that are old and outdated. While I'm doing that, I'm going to be thinking in my mind about how are ways that I've held beliefs. And for me, because my Venus and my Jupiter and my Saturn and all those things are in my second house. And because I have been asked to look at things in a particular way, I'm going to be exploring my old and outdated beliefs around money, around love, around my internal direction and the way that I flow and the way that I communicate. So all these activations are buzzing all over those activations for me. And so I invite you to, if you're a chart person, and if you're not, just find simple questions. If you are, look at your chart and go, what are some questions I can ask myself? What are placements? And, are you changing out old and outdated beliefs around your connection with your family, your fourth house? Are you doing it around your daily practices, your sixth house? Are you doing it around the ways that you learn and educate and who you travel and who you work with, your ninth house, your 10th house? Are you doing it around where you self-sabotage, your 12th house? Are you doing it around how you see yourself, how you treat yourself, your first house? So today, being able to spend time crying would be another great way to be able to feel into how we are releasing. If you're not in a place of crying, move some body and sweat. Releasing and moving our waters, putting our hands and feet in warm or cold water, depending on where we are at, being in a shower or having a hot bath, drinking hot water, drinking tea, drinking fluids, moving those waters through our being, especially because of all of this solar plexus energy and this Piscean energy. Super helpful, because we're looking at discovering where inside of our psyche, track this with me, we're looking for turbulence and conflict. Turbulence is where we feel like we're being thrown around in circles, right? As soon as we get our head up and we get our bearings, it's like our legs get pulled out from under us and we get flipped tits over ass and we lose our bearings. Turbulence is a very dark ride. It can feel very dark. It can feel dark in our psyche and in our emotions. We can feel young and we can feel lost and we can feel futile. We can feel impotent. We can feel disoriented. So when we have those times of turbulence and we can feel where we are living through the turmoil of our emotions, we might be able to see where we are being a victim to our own vulnerability. This is potentially coming from a dilemma of overwhelm, right? We might feel overwhelmed by our situation. We might be overwhelmed by the circumstances around us, our responses to it internally. We might be nervous to crisis prone, right? If we're repressive, we might be nervous. We might not allow ourselves to really feel the turbulence that we're actually feeling. We keep it pressed down really hard. And that makes us nervous, makes us anxious. Or we might be crisis prone. We might feel so turbulent that it's like everything's upset. Right? And so we're always hitting the ceiling over and over again of what it is that we're bumping into. Now, just past that ceiling, right? So just past that shadow's perspective that can only see one side of things lies the gift of humanity, where your heart is open for everyone. And that isn't everyone that you can serve, right? So you keep your heart. You keep reminding yourself that the strongest place that you can come from is from your heart. It's from love. Pisces' depth of understanding and depth of knowledge comes from what it feels. Comes from the watery realms of understanding. The essence that is supporting this concept around humanity is compassion, the Beatitudes, where my suffering encompasses all of humanity. When I suffer, you suffer. When you suffer, I suffer. Right? And so it's not about taking it on or trying to take it from someone, or we all have it. We all have it. So we can be there together with where we are. And that six's energy is based in the shadow of conflict. Okay, so now we're going to weave this. We've got turbulence and conflict. Conflict comes from partially the battle of the sexes, right? Where we're a victim to emotions. We're either reacting to the person who's having the emotions, and or we are the person that is reacting and having the emotions. And so that conflict is a friction. The dilemma is protection. Oh no, I can't keep them safe. I can't stop them from feeling. I can't stop them from hurting, or I can't stop from hurting. I hurt all the time. Reminds me very much of the energy of Ereshkigal inside of the story of Inanna descending into the underworld as she shed the 7 layers of what kept her tied to the mortal realm as she went to see her sister who had called to her from the underworld. And Ereshkigal was in her pain, was in her deep humanity. And this is an Inanna and Ereshkigal are in this mythology 2 aspects of the whole. And so what is in one is within the whole, and what is within the whole can be inside of the one, right? So it's coming to this deep respect of the individual and deep respect of our unification simultaneously. Yes, it's a paradox. And it's not about killing one end of the paradox. It's about accepting the paradox as the paradox, living a paradox. We don't have to make it be something different. Accept the nuances involved, except that it's both a storm and a peacemaker. So in that conflict, what we can often have is an over-attentiveness to a tactlessness. Right? We can be so dedicated to making sure we don't ever piss anybody off that we're just always trying to make sure everything's okay because we don't want to experience all that emotion, all the way to being tactless, where we just have like a disregard for the emotions that are being experienced. And it's this energy of being addicted to conflict and addicted to defending ourselves, where it's like I have to have reason to exist. I have to have reason to be here. We don't necessarily need that reason. And that feels like a big piece of that Virgo South Node is letting go, is that we don't need to have a reason for the value of our own existence. We don't need to have a reason to be cherished. We can simply be loved and appreciated for who we are and what we are. Right? And that's the dropping of our defenses. That's an inner diplomacy where we're tactfully dropping our defenses around the value of who we are. And if when we begin to exquisitely value ourselves, for what we've gone through, grown through, what we've gotten out of it, we begin to have such a richness to our world. And we get to have a kind of standard by which we invite others to see us as well. This is about a process of alchemy, process of transforming conflict to diplomacy and allowing peace to come in, to come be a part of. This is a time of deep learning around compassion and peace. And we're going through it through the route of turbulence and conflict. And this is kind of our pathway through a number of different pieces, our direction, our emotions, what grounds us, our shine. And then we have Mercury and Venus. Our love and values, again, we're talking about values. There's a lot of things around values right now. Love and values with Venus and our communication with Mercury. Both of them are going to be going retrograde in the same sign, and they're going to be pretty much following each other. We're starting off with gate 17. Mercury's in gate in 17.6 and Venus is in 17.5, right? So they're just a little bit off by the line. So Mercury and Venus are going to be moving through right. Okay. Yep. Let me just come back into this at the beginning. We're gonna look at the mechanics first, the human design side of it. Well, astrology side first. So they're both 17 is Aries. So Mercury and Venus are going to be moving through Aries and then retrograding back into Pisces, water, and then back into Aries, fire, right? So the beginning of all of this journey, while it's in Aries, is things are a little on the fiery side. It's like, where are we feeling hot? Where are we feeling annoyed? Earlier today, I was annoyed because my scrunchie kept getting caught in my hair and I couldn't find my socks and my feet were cold. And it was the silliest thing to be annoyed at. I was laughing at myself and yet I could feel the annoyance moving through my body and this like, oh, kind of flush. And, so so I'm sitting there laughing at myself while I'm watching myself, while I'm experiencing myself, while I'm actually the one who's having the experience, being the thing. So I'm both the experiment and the laboratory and the scientist, and I'm the notebook that's tracking what's happening. So being in multiple places at once with the thing, if you're ever finding yourself in a place like that, you're in a great place. That kind of awareness that shimmers back and forth through multi levels is very much about what this energy is about. It's about being able to see yourself in many places and in many ways. It's deeply educational and it's deeply supportive to recognizing the multifacetedness by which we are human and divine. So gate 17. Gate 17 is all about opinions. This is up in the Ajna. It's how we think of and how we perceive things. It's how we launch new ideas, setting up hypotheses, formulating useful opinions, and using them as a basis for organizing systems that think ahead, that have a foresight to them. And so this is a very specific way of being, right? It's very fiery, it's very cardinal. And so we've got a lot of other mutable energy that's happening with the whole Pisces, Virgo, lunar eclipse action going on. And this Mercury Venus right now is very unflexible. It's very rigid. And both of them are not, Mercury is ruled by Virgo and Gemini, which is all caught up in the eclipse, right? So there's a lot being tugged. And Venus is normally ruled with Libra in much softer signs. And so both Mercury and Venus are uncomfortable in these positions. So you might find the things you want to say are not comfortable. You might find yourself wanting to say things that you're like, oh, that's rude. That'll start shit for sure. Know that over the course of the next few days, as that energy slips into Pisces, there will be a softening and maybe a deepening understanding of what it is that we might have been going through. Because we're going to be going from this energy back into Pisces and then back again and continuing on forward. So we're getting this kind of learning around opinions, how to hold them, well, how to have them, how to find them, how to find them, how to have them, how to hold them, how to share them, how to act on them, or how not to act on them. what they really are. So let's talk about that. What really are opinions in a way that is beyond just the black and whiteness of a thing? All right. Opinions. I propose this from the Gene Key perspective, and I also profoundly agree. Even the I Ching says it's about following. So this gate of opinions is about watching and seeing. So if the shadow side of it is the closing of the third eye and having opinions, then the gift of it is farsightedness, precognition via the heart, where we get the opportunity to look at where our and the world's, this is a collective perspective, can see things from the heart, where we can see how something is harmful, not just that it's stupid, where we might be able to ask for what we need for why it supports our greatness, rather than asking for only what we want and not, or asking for what we need without being able to give voice to it, right? So it's deepening the understanding, where opinions are very kind of superficial, right? It's a victim of opinion. It's political. How can I get what I want? Or how can I see this thing in the way that makes the most sense to myself? So we have a repressive state of self-critical, where it can be such an opinion of ourselves that breaks our confidence, breaks our own way of seeing ourselves as whole, all the way to another perspective of having opinions so strong that we're opinionated. And just one thing after the other, we're spouting our opinions right, left, and center. Both of these things are considered to be part of that shadow state. This shadow state on the other end of that aspect of moving through that shield, that energy that keeps us tossing back and forth in those dual shadow states, is that farsightedness. Farsightedness, where we allow the mind to be able to see patterns beyond what we've seen in the past and to be able to extrapolate into the future in a positive way. We still have Mars sitting in gate 53 over in Cancer. It's not happy over there. It's debilitated over there. It's learning an awful lot about immaturity, the false cult of the individual, where they have to do everything by themselves, the restlessness dilemma, and a victim of inability to complete. It moves from solemn to fickle, where it's afraid to really go after what it wants. It's a gift of expansion. Endeavors that outgrow their own forms, an essence of superabundance. Right, so this energy is sitting over in Mars and has been sitting there for quite some time. It's been learning so much, and it is so ready to move on from that energy. Mars in Cancer is like a sopping wet warrior in the kitchen, and so it can be very hard to feel motivated to go jump into discipline space or go be motivated to do something. So if you found your motivation waning for the past little while, this may be a big part of it. And it'll be settling out here in a little while. Yeah. One other piece I want to point out here that feels really important. I want to keep this short enough where it's digestible. We've got Chiron, who has moved into gate 42. So 42 is the completion energy around gate 53. So we've got a solar plexus and a root defined. And this energy is around finishing things, increase, the pressure to complete, the expansion of resources that maximizes growth and brings cycles to a close. Right? So not only do we have the ecliptic energy, which is all about bringing cycles to a close, about closing things and ending things, especially with all of the, Saturn marching through, throwing its an opinion, Venus is making a stand, Mercury is making a stand, the North Node, the Sun, one right after the other through the form of Pisces, massive endings over this time period. Massive endings, unlike anything that we've really ever seen in astrology before. We've never seen this kind of lineup. It's pretty fascinating to be alive in these times and watch new things develop and watch new ways of understanding things, and then live life, right? Here I am sitting in front of you, looking at these maps. This is a topographical view, bird's eye, looking down, looking out, looking here, right? Then when I hit end and I go by, I go live my life, and I'm living my lived terrain, right? I'm going to go walk my life. And that means I'm going to bump into whoever I'm going to bump into. I'm going to have my nervous system do whatever it might do because it does funny things, it just does. Being able to take with us concepts, principles, practices, goals, methods, priorities, ways of weaving, ways of understanding, ways of remembering, so that when we get distracted and we get taken by surprise, we have the capacity to go, oh, hold on, redo. I remember I wanted to try to do something different. That's how we make a change. It's not just that we, lay things on the altar of endings, or we make some lovely ritual or spell. All these things are wonderful to do and are highly encouraged if you are a person that is drawn to. A ritual ending is something as simple as intentionally letting something go and then following through with an action that represents it. There's also this emotionality, and there's also this, like, if you let something go, you have to not continue to keep picking it back up. You got to let it go. Now, if it keeps coming back and knocking on your door, well, then you got to look at it in a little different light, right? You get to decide what you open your door to. Why are you opening your door? What are you letting them in for? What's your position? Knowing our position with things, we get given a position. We are able to take a position, right? We get given a position. Some might say, we choose it. We chose our parents. We chose our experience. Let's just say we got given our experience. Whether we chose it or not, I won't even put on the table for discussion at the moment. We got given an experience. We also have a choice about our experience, right? We get to choose, how do I feel about it in this moment? What am I going to say? Now, what I think and what I say might be two different things, because I oftentimes have things that I think and then I go, I'm not sharing that thing. That thing's not nice. That thing, no, why are you even there? You know what? I will contend with you in a moment. I'm going to choose my words carefully because of XYZ, whatever the reason is. Then I come back and deal with this thing. What was this there for? Why was this there? Why this reaction? Why this default? This is the getting to know, right? So I invite you to take this information. I'm going to come out of this screen share here. And I invite you to take these pieces of information and let them challenge you. Feel where you feel challenged. What do you feel challenged by? Are you challenged by people and things you don't know, or by people who are closest to you? Are you challenged by things you didn't get to do or things you did too much of? Are you challenged because you give yourself away or you conserve yourself too much? Are you challenged because you have too much or you don't have enough? And I'd say keep asking that question until you find the answer on both sides, because you find your own paradox. Inside of your own paradox, you have the capacity to more deeply understand yourself than anyone ever could. It's a delicious feeling to feel understood. You are your own best way to understand yourself. So I invite you during this season to really get to know yourself, to let yourself feel and to be without necessarily having to understand why. Remember, reason doesn't really help in these times. Pisces knows no reason. It's not about reason there. It's about beingness. It's like going to the ocean side. You don't ask a single molecule of water or a single grain of sand why it exists. You see it as the whole for what it is. And that's what these times are asking. They're asking, in a sense, for us to see our wholeness and for us to see how everyone is a part of who we are. And so in this time of deep division in this world, and in politics and in life and in the planet, let alone the US, let alone wherever you might be living. So much of this work starts from here and then echoes out in a much more profound way. I wish you many blessings on your journey. I am off to the gardens, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Lots of love from the mountain.